Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is May 23rd, 2023, May 23rd, 2023 at 1 p.m. At this time, if you're willing and able and would like to stand with us, I'm going to have Mike Wright do the invocation, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be done by David Halbstein. He is still U.S. Marine Corps, and he's with the American Legion and the Veterans Liaison for us here in the county. He also works for U.S. Congressman Gus Bilirakis. So if you're willing and able, we'll have Mike come forward, and David will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you very much, Chairman. To agree with you, this is quite an honor for me. Please bow your heads. Lord Jesus, thank you just so much for this beautiful day. Thank you for this place you've given us, this home, this environment, these people, these communities. We wake up each day and we get to live in this place. We get to work in this place. We get to thrive in this place. We get to participate in government in this place. We get to just enjoy so much. And we ask you, Lord, just to be in this building, to be in this room today. Let us feel your presence. Let us feel your power and the pleasure here. Be with the decision makers here, the commissioners, the staff, all the folks here in order to do the county's business. Be with them. Give them your clarity and your purpose for mind. And ask you, Lord, to be with first responders. There are many in this room today. The people put themselves in harm's way to protect us. We ask you, Lord, that you be them with them. You bless them, bless their families, bring them home safely. Mostly, Lord, I just ask you, Lord, for calm, for peace, for good conversation, for healthy debate. Because it is through that we seek truth. It is through truth we seek your guidance. It's through your guidance we seek your word. It's through your word we seek you. It's through your glory, Jesus, we thank you. And for that we say amen.
Amen. Very good.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, I would ask Madam Deputy Clerk Amy if you could do the roll call.
This is a regular meeting of the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners. This 23rd day of May, 2023. In attendance are Chair Ruthie Shaba, First Vice Chair Holly Davis, Second Vice Chair Rebecca Bays, Commissioners Jeff Kennard and Diana Finegan, County Administrator Steve Howard, and County Attorney Denise A. Diamond-Lynn.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Howard, before I look for approval of the agenda, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
There's one item, please. Office of Utility Regulation, Executive Director Consultant.
Okay, and that's
What's the letter?
E11.
E11, please.
Thank you. Board, at this time, I'm looking for approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
move approval of the agenda with the addition of E11.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Davis, a second by Commissioner Kennard. Thank you. Is there any additional board comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That passes 5-0. Consent agenda. I'm looking for, do you want to accept the items in its entirety? Or do you want to go one at a time? I'm looking for
Madam Chair,
a motion, please.
motion to approve the consent agenda B1 through 9.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Davis, second by Commissioner Finegan for consent B1 through B9. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there any board comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That passes 5-0. Thank you. Proclamations and awards. Looking for a motion, board, to approve the proclamation.
Motion to approve C1.
Motion by Commissioner Davis.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any board discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, please join me up front for the proclamation for Emergency Medical Services EMS Week. Thank you.
Would those individuals representing Emergency Medical Services Week please approach the podium? Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. And now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County, Florida, does hereby proclaim the week of May 21st through 27th, 2023 as Emergency Medical Services Week in Citrus County, Florida, and throughout the state. With the EMS Strong theme, EMS Week, where emergency care begins, we encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Executed this 23rd day of May, 2023.
So, Commissioners, we thank you for recognizing EMS Appreciation Week. This week is very important for everyone to show appreciation to those that provide life-saving services every day to our citizens and visitors of Citrus County. Today, emergency medical system consists of the trained members of the public that choose to act, emergency medical dispatchers, EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, law enforcement officers, and any out-of-hospital medical care providers. Over this past year, our EMS team members have responded to 24,120 emergency medical calls. These emergencies could range from someone just not feeling well to a cardiac arrest. As you know, EMS personnel engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continued education to enhance their life-saving skills. Our EMS personnel often encounter unpredictable scenarios when they arrive on a scene. For example, these brave men and women have experienced situations where they were called regarding a medical emergency, but upon arrival, a patient demanded the crew leave at gunpoint. We had another situation where during transport, the patient became combative and attempted to push the team member out of the back of the rescue while en route to the hospital. Just know that we appreciate the acknowledgement, the value, and the accomplishments of our EMS staff and are grateful for the community's continued support. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. I hope I don't ever see you again, but I'm glad you're there. Okay.
Well played.
Moving on, at this time, we're going to open to the public. I'm going to ask you to please fill out a green card if you have something to say. If you have a letter on file, you get 5 minutes. Otherwise, you will get 3 minutes. And please direct all comments to the chairman. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Board. I'm Brad Benson, paying another little visit from Hernando. And the last time I was here, we had a chance to talk about grammar and the poor state of education. Some of you may have seen what's going on down in our county with all the teachers that we have at the teachers union coming out to these school board meetings. And I'm telling you, when I see that, I see why we have people that can't write letters in professional jobs. And as in last week, when we talked about Mr. Grant and the legal letter he wrote, I wanted to talk about an article in your Citizens, what's it called? The Citrus Chronicle wrote an article that was had the headline, Attorney Grant Issues Cease and Desist Orders to Finegan Bashers. Well, Attorney Grant can't issue a cease and desist order. He's not a judge. But the other thing, and here's the problem with understanding what people write. The paper quoted a line from the letter, and the letter said, "You are warned not to continue to repeat or perpetuate continued acts of bad or criminal conduct by Diana Finegan." So if you read this and you take out all the extraneous big words that Mr. Grant tried to put in and the newspaper dutifully copied, what it says is that the people that receive this should not copy the crimes committed by Ms. Finegan, his client. That's what it says, which is why there's an issue with that. That's what it says. That's in the thing. So,
Sir,
okay.
talk to me.
Well, shaking her head, no, that's what it says.
No, talk to
Okay.
me.
Anyhow, that's what the letter says. And this would have, if I were a judge, I'd send this guy back to law school. And if I were the editor, this is a copy of the letter I wrote to the editor about this, because this is terrible. If you read what's in the letter, that's what it says, not to copy her crimes. Now, finally, Mr. Grant appears here on behalf of the hospital in favor of this new Baker Act facility. And one of the commissioners who is using him as an attorney for this other affair is going to be voting on this Baker Act thing. And I think that that both should recuse themselves, since it would be a conflict of interest. They're dealing with each other on other issues.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. And thank you. Before you start our time, we do have a time certain at 1:30, so just be aware of that. I'll be stopping public comment, but you have time. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Diane Liptak, Hernando County. This is a post from Scott Wilson, dated May 19th, 2023. Quote, "Feeling sick to my stomach. This will be long-winded, but many that follow my posts do not have the opportunity to spend 500 or more hours annually since 1965 on lakes across Florida. Following FWC treatment schedules, I have traveled to Lake Rousseau the past 2 days. Normally applied aquatics, stages or chemtainers at a tiny public park in Levy County on the north side of the lake. They were not there yesterday. So when I pull up today, there are 2 airboats and a gaggle of UFI-FAS scientists. Many go out to UFI-FAS and their graciousness to answer questions and my concerns about this treatment. In our many years filming spray boats, this is the very first time I've ever seen real science monitoring a treatment. In their trucks, they had about 30 high-tech GPS tracking monitoring buoys. Now some context. Lake Rousseau was created by flooding a bottomland pine forest. It's fed by Rainbow and Withlacoochee rivers. Typically, it has moving, clear water. In the many years, many of these trees are either laid down or broken off to spike stumps just under the water level. Besides the old river channel, the entire lake is very dangerous and a complete hazard to navigation. So much so that being a half boat width outside of marked channels has resulted in countless catastrophic boat damage. Many areas being treated are in large expanses of these stump fields that are even too dangerous for spray airboats. So the treatment is being done via subsurface injection, where pressurized weighted hoses are dragged to inject poison to plants underwater. The two chemical mix being used is a mixture of aquathol K and panoxylam. These two chemicals cause more collateral damage to native plants and the environment than any others used. This is documented in audio recording of Lake Harris Management meeting by FWC biologist Natalie Vischer. Panoxylam labels say never to use in moving water. This is where the fancy buoys come in. They were launched to track water movement into these inaccessible areas. The plan is to inject enough chemical into the water to build high enough concentrations to be moved into those areas by water flow to kill hydrilla in these areas that they can't get to spray. When I asked why chemicals were not staged on this county property, it turns out that FWC made a deal with a private landowner to stage and store chemicals and conduct operations to avoid as much exposure to the public as possible. I hate snakes. I understand that most of Lake Rousseau is not, mechanical harvesting is not possible in it, but most of the lake is a dangerous hazard and inaccessible anyway. And that's just the first portion.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Sabrina Watson, LaCanto, Florida. I'll be speaking for Exceptional Life Project. If you'll give me 5 minutes, please. I'm going to pick up where Diane Liptak left off. I think it's important to note that Mr. Scott Wilson has been following the poisoning of our waterways for many years, spending 500 or more hours annually. Since 1965, as you just heard. It's clear that now we have the FWC hiding their staging areas on private land so they won't be caught. And this whole thing started supposedly to clear navigable areas for boats. So for what reason will we need to inject these chemicals via hoses into a non-navigable waterway where boats can't even navigate anyway? To finish the rest of that post by Mr. Wilson, it says they are building chemical concentrations so high as to be moved by running water, never used in quotations, in high enough concentrations to kill, then wonder why all the inshore seagrass beds from the mouth of the river exit point to Wakasa Bay have magically disappeared in the past 5 years. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but I think it's important. And I've brought this to your attention before, so I know that none of you are ignorant to this any longer. You've received well in excess of 50 notices from citizens who are asking you to stop contracting with the FWC and stop poisoning our waterways. But I'd like to bring to everybody's attention an article in the newspaper dated May 20th, in which it features Mr. Ralph Masulo. What's important to note about this article is that he talks about his great legislative wins and getting you money. So, let me tell you a little bit about that money he's got you. He's gotten Homosassa River Restoration $4 million to clean up and restore the river. He's gotten the Kings Bay Restoration $2 million to fund the restoration and maintenance to finish the project. Rainbow River Restoration $1.8 million for cleanup. Tsala-Apopka Chain of Lakes, $700,000, part of a long-term cleanup of the lake system. It's important to note that the maps for the spraying of Tsala-Apopka Chain of Lakes are on the FWC website, and they spray that chain of lakes every single day, 7 days a week, with many of the chemicals that I have sent you the information on. So I'm not sure if Mr. Masulo thinks the people that live in the county are idiots, or if he just chooses not to pay attention. But I believe that a legislator has to know what's going on. Someone who's getting money to clean up lakes has to know that we're poisoning them. So where does the vicious cycle begin and end? FWC pays the county to poison the lakes. Legislatures get money to help people clean up the lakes. FWC poisons the lakes. The legislatures get money to clean up the lakes. Our lakes are almost dead. And I know that this board is going to tell me we work for 165,000 people. I've heard that from this board many times. I'd like to know how many of those 165,000 people have sent you letters asking you to poison our lakes. Because I know you're getting a lot of letters being asked to not poison our lakes, and there's a lot more letters coming. So you are and have been educated on this situation. I had a conversation with somebody who told me this morning that these products are safe. I've never seen a single definition in a dictionary next to safe that includes the words hazards to humans and domestic animals. It's on the label of the stuff you're pumping into waterways. And there's many more here. I've read them to you here before. Because you are aware of all this stuff, you are now negligent, complicit, and liable, ab initio, which means from the beginning. And we will be changing the face of accountability. Each and every one of you needs to be held accountable because you now know what's going on and you have the ability to stop it. One more little item of note from somebody else who also posted on the, posted with Mr. Wilson. All the science is there, proving what these idiots are doing. It may not be coming out of University of Florida, but the proof is now in numerous studies what herbicides do to the natural world, and in turn us. I encourage you to watch the story of Yellowstone National Park, which has self-returned to an ecologically sound system. Governor Ron DeSantis has not said a single word. Why? Jimmy Buffett and his nonprofit Save the Manatee Club haven't addressed this nonsense. Why? Guy Harvey, not a single word. Alligator Ron Bergeron with all of his partners in Everglades videos. Not a word. Why? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Jack Reiner. I live at 4255 S Purse Lane Drive in Homosassa, and I'm here to speak about the vacate of the Finegan request for the vacate. I happen to live across the canal from the property in question, or the two properties in question.
Sir,
And-
can I interrupt you?
Yes.
You can speak now if you'd like, but that will be on at 1:30 if you
Okay.
want to wait for that public comment.
That's fine.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Next speaker? Anybody? Okay, I'm going to close the public portion of the open to the public. It's 1:23. Board, is there anything you would like to say or add? You have 7 minutes. Commissioner Davis?
Maybe.
Commissioner Bays?
Mr. Howard, what is staff's suggestion on this spraying of the lakes?
I asked staff that. I think this has been brought up a little bit, and obviously some of this is, I say BS before Steve. So I'm just coming on board here. But I'd have to ask staff what their position is on it. We've had some discussions, but I'm not prepared to tell you what that is right here.
Well, I know I've had some discussions. I mean, I've had the presentation by UF, and I know that, you know, I've been told that if we don't spray, it becomes an emerging marsh. Mechanical harvesting is quite expensive. So have we really looked into alternatives?
Yeah, I can't. I can bring something back. I'll be more than happy to look at it with staff and see what they have in the past and what they're currently looking at today.
I mean, I think we need to look across the state and across other places and see what's going on. I mean, we keep hearing this, so I would like to know. I'd like to have some
Yep, absolutely.
more dialogue on it.
We'll do that.
Sure. Thank you. Anything? Commissioner Davis?
Just had a meeting more or less on this subject yesterday with Sala Popka. And do we happen to know, because I actually have a deep history, obviously, with Crystal River. I believe we used to spray a lot in Crystal River. And I don't think we're spraying there as much or at all since all the mechanical harvesting has been done through Safe Crystal River. So I'd be interested in getting that answer. So there is I think that the world knows by now that chemicals can be very dangerous, right? What we have heard from UF and from FWC is that the chemicals they are using are known to be safe enough, still not optimal at all. You know, I'm a nature girl. Like, the more you can go back to nature, the better. However, we have been told if we do not spray, as Rebecca Bays just said, Commissioner Bays, sorry, that it will revert, it'll get much worse if we don't do this. However, Safe Crystal River has done an incredible job cleaning up Crystal River. Now they're working in Homosassa, and I started lobbying several years ago in Tallahassee to get Too Far going. Too Far got 4.2 million last summer. We're getting held up by permits. But what that would do is actually restore the bottom, because you're right, the fisheries are really not as healthy as they should be or have been in the solid Popka chain. My vision would be is use as little or zero chemicals in our waterways as possible. But we have to use that money first to get it cleaned up from prior generations' mistakes with leaky septics, all the other nutrient loads. And the state preempts us on a lot of issues. They're looking at a statewide fertilizer ban, a ban on bans for fertilizer. We're in one of the most fragile ecosystems in the state of Florida, and there's quite a few to choose from, but we are one of the ones that is quite fragile. And that, I personally make the choice. I don't use herbicide or fertilizer on my own lawn, but I know a lot of people do. And to take that right away from us, and then FWC does have a lot to do with managing our waterways. So it's not that we're disregarding what you're saying. It's that, it takes time to affect change. Does that make sense?
You're done? Thank you. Commissioner Finegan? Commissioner Kennard?
Yeah, I wasn't going to address the comments until I heard Commissioner Davis speaking about them. I think that we have to be careful about accepting what's said at the podium as the gospel. It's not that we're disregarding what's being said there, it's that the experts are telling us otherwise. The fisheries in the solid Popka chain are improving. They're not dying. I've fished those lakes when they were dead. There weren't largemouth bass there. There were minimal fisheries to pursue there. Not too awful long ago. Just recently, there was a bass tournament that was hosted out there. They don't host those tournaments there if the lakes are dead. If you have a good population of largemouth bass, it means you have a good population of bait, of food that they feed on. Those are other species of smaller fish. So I don't believe for a minute that the lakes are dead or that the lakes are dying. The anecdotal evidence is that the fisheries are actually improving out there, and the experts that we talk to continually tell us that this is the most efficient and safe way of addressing our waterways. So, I listen to what's being said up there, but also listen to what the experts tell us.
May I respond?
Are you done?
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Davis.
You've served with me 2.5 years now. I always listen to staff and I always do trust the experts. I have heard it from other sources other than at the podium. And if we were allowed to talk about these things outside of chambers, I would have called my favorite fishing commissioner and said, "What up on the lakes?" Because I would know that you would know. However, some other folks that I know and trust who aren't on this commission have told me that we have a bad bait fish issue there. So I just haven't had time to chase that down. It only came to light like last week. So thank you for making me feel better about the state of the fisheries over there. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for your comments. Okay, it is 1:30 and we have a time certain H.1. This is an application to vacate a portion of South Blue Water Pointe.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
if you and the board would excuse me, I need to recuse myself from this.
Madam Attorney? Yes?
I'm recusing myself
Thank
at this
you.
point. Thank you.
Okay, Joanna?
The applicant's present. I think you might have a presentation first.
Can the applicant step forward, please?
going to go first or me?
She wanted you. I tried, Mr.
Well, I think she's got
Stillwell.
wonderful photographs that we can all benefit
He
from.
likes my PowerPoint slides, so I'm going to put this one up, because I think that's the one that you want.
Okay, go ahead.
There you go. Welcome, Mr. Stillwell.
Good afternoon. No, I'm good, thank
You're
you.
waiting for me. Okay, no problem.
No, I'm gonna, I wanted the visual.
Okay.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Clark Stillwell. My professional address is 320 South Highway 41, the Brandon Bank Building in Inverness, Florida. I represent the applicant, the Finegans, Mr. and Mrs. Finegan. This is a street vacation. We previously had a hearing on this January, I believe, of this year. And at that hearing, it was continued, and the board requested we submit to them visuals of what we intended to do to address the idea of this turnaround situation at the end of a dead-end street. And I'm going to speak to that, but in anticipation, I've prepared a timeline of events here so you all can refresh your memories while I refresh mine. Madam Clerk, if you would be so kind as to hand those out. And let's just briefly go through this. This particular street was platted in 1960. It was platted with 40 feet right-of-ways. It dead ends into two lots, lots 1 and 2. At the end of the dead end, there is no cul-de-sac. There is a sort of an enlarged area. To put that in the proper context, in 1960, the current code would require either 50 or 60 feet of right-of-way, 50 feet if you did curb and gutter, 60 feet if you didn't do curb and gutter, and it would require a 50-foot radius for the cul-de-sac. At the time this plat was done, Citrus County had no zoning ordinance, no public works manual. The modern standards that we found in the 1986 plan and zoning ordinance were a fabrication of someone's mind, and same for the 1990 current land development code. The houses that were built on lot 1 and 2 preclude the 82 public works manual, the 1986 zoning ordinance, and the 1990 land development code as amended. The house on lot 2 does not currently meet setbacks for frontage. The current setback would be 25 feet off of the lot line and 50 feet off of the center line. This particular house is built 12 feet from the right-of-way line. Now, I say that because that's not the applicant's fault, and it's not this board's fault. That plat was done under the law as it was allowed at the time in 1960, and I'm sure the engineer did it to best management practices for the time at that time. The existing area that we're vacating is approximately 2,600 square feet. To put that in context, an acre is what, 42,560 square feet. The turnaround area is less actually than the 2,600 feet that we seek to vacate. It represents about 28% of the total area if you had a proper cul-de-sac. If you were to build a cul-de-sac there to current standards, it physically could not be done. It would have to encroach into private property because you only have a 40-foot right-of-way. We started this process in February 2022. That's when my office started. It was filed in June of 2022. We finally got sufficiency for this application in December of 2022. And if you recall, we talked about the fact that a lot reconfiguration is part of this. We talked about the fact that it wasn't until December of 2022 that my office finally received the last necessary utility letter. In that regard, the utility letter that you have all formally request an easement, and we have provided that easement document necessary to protect the utilities' right of access. Since the filing of the application, we provided to the county staff and in your backup material 2 documented incidents of where there's been accidents already in the public's attempt to do turnarounds in this limited area. That means the applicant's property rights have been damaged twice, and in 2 other instances, the public's vehicles have been damaged as they attempt to try to do a turnaround in this limited area. Not noted in the outline, but I can tell you if you turn onto this dead-end street, there is a sign this big below the name of the street and the speed limit that says dead end. It's not the most obvious thing in the world, and it's a long, long way, distance-wise, from where this is. In 1960, when this plat was done, the amount of traffic in this county and the number of people in the county, far, far less than it is now. And as you're aware, there's a lot of what I'm just going to call sightseers in this county now. They'd like to drive around, and they end up driving down this road, and they end up in front of the applicant's house, and there's nowhere for them to go. So when we met here at the last time, we raised the issue that the way you could address this public safety issue was to attempt to do a turnaround area within the public right-of-way. Now, remember that the pavement is not the end of the public's rights. Pavement is at the end of the 40-foot right-of-way. So initially, what we represented to the board in January is we would try to put that on the north side of the road facing Lot 3. When I left here, the surveyors and the engineers told me there was simply not enough room for that. So then we revised it and we brought it on the south side of the roadway as depicted by the aerial that's in front of you. The initial, first, the location is defined by the length of your basic average sedan. Sedan is anywhere from 8 to 10 feet. So you have to have this turnaround at such a point where that sedan sits there, it can do the turn and then the turn out. If you make it any closer, it's not going to function the way it should. The initial aspect of this was we would do 8 feet in depth and 20 feet in length, and it was a rectangle. We revised that down to 16 feet in length on the roadway with a flared design, as you can see here, and 12 feet at the right-of-way boundary. That's sufficient enough for your basic sedan, for your pickup truck, for your mail truck, and for your small box truck to make that turnaround, doing a 2-point turnaround instead of what is now a 3. As represented at the last hearing, the construction of this would be done by the cost of the applicant. Again, there's no utility objections, and the proposed easements preserve the utilities' rights. You have a public safety issue, commissioners, and it's not anyone's fault. It just has occurred. We've tried to come up with what I'm going to call a practical and safe solution. Is it to code? I can't tell you that it's to code. And frankly, I don't think anybody wants it to be to code over the 50-foot turnaround radius. But I can tell you that the design will mitigate the issue. It'll mitigate the issue for most of the traffic down there. This isn't a through fairway. Sure, people get lost. Normally, trucks shouldn't get lost, and there's not a lot of truck traffic down there. Is it going to mean that the driveways of the 2 neighbors, which have historically acted as turnarounds, is it going to eliminate that 100%? No, it simply is not, okay? But I do know the essence of traffic and traffic mitigation and traffic movement is path of least resistance. And commissioners, you know, when you drive around, if you're going to drive through Inverness at 5 o'clock, you're going to try and avoid that stoplight at 581 and ABC because you don't want to sit there for 3 cycles, as they call it. Path of least resistance. Those people will be up, they will pull up, they will see that it's private property. They look to their left, and you've provided a safe way for them to indicate a two-way turnaround. You've done 5 street vacations since this year started. I remember in January we talked about the giving away public property. Well, your plan specifically allows for the giving away of public property if certain standards are met. We meet each and every one of those standards, and your staff report reflects that. Your land development, your state statutes, for that matter, allow for street vacations. And your land development code similarly has a set of standards for street vacations. And this particular application meets each and every one of those on its face. I hate this. Normally these street vacations are boom, boom, let's go, boom, it's all over. This has risen to a level that, quite frankly, I'm unfamiliar with. And I don't think we should have ever gotten to this level. We're trying to do something right here, and we have meant no offense to anybody by putting this on the table, and I think we address this public safety issue. Now, if you have any questions of me, I'll be glad to answer them. But Madam Chairman, I have essentially concluded my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Stillwell.
I do, if there is public comment, I would like an element of rebuttal if I can.
Absolutely. Board?
Good to see you.
I do have one question. Why this turnaround? Why isn't at least the apron to turn around to do the 3-point turn? Why isn't that behind the red line?
It can't go there, it doesn't fit.
Well, you're saying it doesn't fit because of the landscaping?
You would have to pull out that power pole that's right there and move that.
Okay. I don't see that on this picture.
It's on the surveys.
Okay. Okay. And you couldn't move it further towards the red line?
The red line, which is the east boundary of the vacation area, the surveyed vacation area, it has a power pole within it. You could move that line to the east to exclude the power pole, and to the extent you moved it 2 feet, 1 foot, whatever that
Okay.
is, 3 feet, then you could move the turnaround additionally that feet. Note in that aerial that the turnaround area is approximately 35 feet from the driveway, and also note that right across from the driveway on lot 3 is an existing concrete slab that is 3 times the size of the proposed turnaround.
Okay.
Now, if you were inclined to do that, Madam Chairman, the one benefit you would get is that the power company would have 24/7 access to the power pole.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Joanna?
I don't really have anything else to add. I mean, you've heard this before. I didn't want to go through the same slides that I went through before. You do have a comment in your packet from our tech services that evaluated this turnaround and said that the proposed passenger vehicle turnaround does operate as indicated. If this application was approved, they recommended that the applicant construct in accordance with county roadway standards as provided in the Land Development Code, and it be completed under a right-of-way utilization agreement.
Thank you. Okay, so, board, what is your pleasure? I have to open it up to the public without no motion on the floor. Correct. Thank you. Okay, at this time, if anyone would like to speak about this application, please step forward. You get 3 minutes. Please direct all your comments to the chairman, and welcome. State your name and where you live, please.
My name is Jack Reiner. I live at 4255 S Purslane Drive. My property is located directly across the canal from the Finegan property. And I've been there for the last year and 8 months. We live in a neighborhood that kind of looks after each other, and I can tell you that after a year and 8 months, I probably witnessed 150 automobiles in those driveways across the canal, with people parking their cars and walking around, and just like, they have no respect for private property. And I don't know that there's any way to keep them out. But it's just an observation that, there are just so many cars that come down that street, and they never stop before they get to the end. They drive right in, they pull in the carport, they pull up in front of the house, they get out, they walk around. They think it's a park, I guess. I'm really not sure, but I don't know any reason why the property shouldn't be vacated, the road vacated. There's no other use for the end of that road except for those two residences, which I know that the Finegans have both of those residences. So I would be in favor of that, simply because it's make things a lot less hectic there and probably a lot safer. And I don't think the county would have to maintain that portion of the road anymore. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Did you fill out a green card?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Next speaker? Anyone? Welcome.
My name is John Head. I own 4325 South Blue Water Point in Homosassa and have for the last 18 years. I'm Dr. Brooks's neighbor, thus making me one property removed from the Finegan property. I was first made aware of the proposed gate and turnaround just prior to a February meeting on this proposal by Dr. Brooks, who wanted to know my thoughts on this matter and asked me about my conversation with the Finegans and or their attorney, Mr. Stillwell. I told him I knew nothing about this, basically all new news to me. My thought process regarding this proposed gate and turnaround are as follows. How do we go from 0 to 100 so quickly? Is there a dire public need for this? Was there a traffic study done? Further logic tells me, shouldn't we first pursue proper signage advising of a dead-end street? I take issue with the signage Mr. Stillwell's referring to. It's very small. We could have a dead-end street sign, a big, normal sign, perhaps a no through traffic sign, a no turnaround sign. Then perhaps we could install an apparatus to gauge traffic count so we could discuss the need for all this with documented facts and not mere speculation. My thought process then leads me down a path to ask these further questions. There's an existing turnaround in front of the Finegan property. It has sufficed for all previous owners of the said property, could easily be adjusted to accommodate any more room needed. Why is this simply being ignored and not even being considered? This gate, why are we actually moving this turnaround to the front of the Brooks property? Is it really about the proposed turnaround, or is it about the gate they wish to install? This gate, if installed, will grant the Finegans exclusive status on our street and increase their property values substantially. But at a cost to whom? The very neighbors they now wish to place their new turnaround in front of, as our property values will diminish. The neighborhood was platted and has existed for decades, approved by Citrus County. The Finegans simply knew this when they purchased their property. Furthermore, my final question is this. If this new turnaround is so vitally important and has to be placed in front of the Brooks' home, then what is the need for the street vacation and the gate to the Finegan property? At that point, they shouldn't be necessary and should be a moot point. In conclusion, I ask, are we really here today because of the traffic and the dire need for the move of the turnaround, or are we here to exclusively gate the Finnegan's property? Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this time? Welcome.
Thank you for hearing me, allowing me to speak. My name is Pam Brooks, and I'm the Finnegan's next door neighbor. Diana Finegan and her husband have requested that Citrus County vacate approximately 2,666 square feet of roadway on South Blue Water Point in Homosassa, roadway which is directly adjacent to my property. By doing so, they seek to route the vehicles not through the existing cul-de-sac, which has long existed at the termination of South Blue Water Point, but instead in front of my property by making the existing roadway part of their property and constructing a gate across the roadway just past my property line. Should they be granted the vacation and allow construction of a gate, there will be no avenue on which the traffic can turn, except through my property itself. Regardless of the thought process behind the proposed vacation, the reality is that the taking of the property and existing roadway will create an extension of the Finnegan's property. This vacation, if allowed, would be in direct conflict with the neighborhood's existing traffic flow and would allow one citizen, Diana Finegan, to improve her property and benefit economically, aesthetically, increasing the privacy to the detriment of all the others in the neighborhood. This is not right. This would directly influence my neighbors and me by decreasing the property's aesthetics, property values, and increasing a negative traffic influence. The allegations that the vacation is needed to stop the public from using the current cul-de-sac, which has allegedly resulted in damage to the Finnegan's property, has been completely blown out of proportion and has the risk of creating a greater degree of danger than currently exists. The traffic that exists on the end of South Blue Water Point is minimal, and when traffic does need to turn around, they have the space and ability present to do so safely. As an example, in advance of the meeting today, my husband took his 3/4-ton truck down South Blue Water Point and was able to safely turn around in the area as it exists without difficulty or damage. By cordoning off the end of the street, that area is no longer available, and people are now forced to turn around where there is no designated place to do so, and that place is in my front yard. I worry about the safety of my property, I worry about the vehicles being damaged, and I worry about my grandchildren, who often stay at my home and enjoy running around the property and being near the water. We do watch them, but there are 7 of them, and I just worry about strangers coming down the road. This vacation is inviting danger where none currently exists, and the Finnegans are fine with their...
Thank you. I'm sorry,
you
your
very
time is
much.
up. Thank you. Welcome.
I'm not a speaker, so I apologize.
That's right. Just give us your name and...
My name is Hank Brooks. My wife Pam and I own the property next door to the Finnegans at 4317 South Blue Water Point on the Homosassa River. I feel the county commissioners have a very tough job. You're tasked with the public trust to determine Citrus County's future. You must balance the old Florida Citrus County charm that makes us so unique with its growth and development. The rivers like the Chesapeake, various pronunciations of that, Homosassa, Crystal, and Withlacoochee are all the major draws to our area. Allowing development along our rivers may, in the short run, help the county pocketbook, but certainly in the long run will negatively change our quiet, peaceful community charm. Although it may seem small and of no consequence to the commissioners seated here today, but allowing the Finnegans to redevelop and change a decades-old community is a step in the wrong direction. Allowing the Finnegans to increase their property values at the expense of their newly adopted neighborhood would indeed increase the property taxes paid by the Finnegans. This, however, would fall short of any positive Citrus County gain. This vacation would set precedent for other wealthy private public property owners to do the same, thereby changing the nature of Homosassa and its sister rivers. Allowing the vacation of an existing and functional cul-de-sac with placement of a gate across an existing public roadway and subsequently rerouting all traffic to the immediate neighbor's front yard would be an inequity. If allowed, this would increase danger to our grandchildren and decrease both the aesthetic and economic value to our entire neighborhood. Contrary to the man that was up here earlier, I have interviewed multiple neighbors and have yet to find one that is in favor of this vacation. In summary, this vacation request by Diane Finegan and her husband should not be allowed in any shape or form.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Welcome.
And good afternoon. My name is Mark Tomlinson. I'm an attorney at Dickinson and Gibbons in Sarasota, Florida. I'm here on behalf of the Brooks, but also familiar with the stance that many of their neighbors have taken regarding this vacation application, including Mr. Head, from whom you heard from earlier. I would say this is an issue in an application that concerns right and wrong. And behind that, there's always a why. We've heard from Mr. Stillwell, who has advised this board of the why. They've actually submitted documentation to that effect. The why is that they intend to vacate this area and construct a gate and essentially create their own private enclave at the end of the street. And as a result of that, that is effectively shifting the burden for the traffic that would otherwise terminate on that road to Mr. Brooks's home, Mr. Head's home, and the other neighbors in this community. As Mr. Stillwell said, this plat has existed since 1960. I would take issue to the fact that he says this isn't a cul-de-sac. It's not a cul-de-sac by code, it's a cul-de-sac by use. It currently serves as a turnaround, which serves for the benefit of that neighborhood to allow those to traverse the area safely and effectively. Forcing traffic into an untenable position with no exit but the Brooks's property or a to be constructed, which is not yet present, turnaround in front of his property is just simply not right in this circumstance. The area that was shown in the photos by Mr. Stillwell shows this area and speaks for itself well. If the issue here is about traffic, then the Finegans, by closing off and vacating this portion of the property, are exacerbating that issue to the detriment of their neighbors. They intend to essentially shift those burdens to them while having peace and privacy in their own property where it doesn't currently exist by only means of the vacation here. Mr. Stillwell talked about the damage that has been submitted, showing that there have been the quarter wall that's been cracked or backed into. That doesn't change. There shouldn't be responsible. They shouldn't, but neither should my clients, responsible for the negligence of others. And that will continue regardless of whether this vacation exists or not, just because that's a matter, that's just common sense. That's just what happens. As an attorney myself, I see it all the time. People back up, they're not careful with others' property. It just, unfortunately, that's the reality we live in. But this vacation doesn't seem to serve that. It only shifts that burden. So I would object, as he said, that this is a public safety issue. And if it is a public safety issue, again, it only shifts that issue. The path of least existence is what presently exists now. The 5 prior street vacations he mentioned, I would say this has to be seen in a vacuum. Each factual circumstance is different. You can't rely upon a prior vacation as a basis to grant this one. And finally, Madam Chairwoman spoke about moving the paver area as it exists in that boundary. But I would argue something that Mr. Stillwell didn't issue is that, not only talking about the landscaping and the power pole, that would affect the presence of the gate that they've advised the board that they intend to construct. So moving that anywhere other on their property wouldn't serve the purpose for what they actually seek to do here today. So I would argue to the commission, this is just simply not right, and not right to my client and the remainder of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? No, sir, you've already spoken. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Stillwell, would you like to address these questions?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. First, I want to say, as to the design of the turnaround, okay, it has been reviewed by the county engineering staff. You have the report. It's been reviewed by Public Works, and they have basically said they accept the design subject to the standard right-of-way utilization contract, which is requires the client to provide insurance and sufficiency of cost under the standard right-of-way utilization agreement. the county code, there's a limited time period where the maintenance is on the developer and then it goes to the county. So you have that assurance that it will be constructed in a way. And you have the assurance that that the design works. Again, and if you will, I want to emphasize, a sedan, if it stops at that red line, is 8 to 10 feet long, okay? So that's where the turnaround has to start. To the extent we discuss moving it so that the power pole is provided public access all the time, then it allows it to shift further towards and away from lots 1 and 2. Is this going to mean that the garbage truck that drives down there is going to use this turnaround? It's too small, and we know that, and we've been very upfront about it. And I can't change that, and that's not going to change if you don't grant this, because that garbage truck does a turnaround in the driveway, in the public right-of-way portion of the driveway of Dr. Brooks's house and Mr. Head's house, to the extent they back up that far. That's a fact. It's the driveway, end of the driveway, to a distance of 10 feet is already public property, and certainly they have the right to do the turnaround there. They call this a cul-de-sac. It is anything but a cul-de-sac, and you don't need to be an engineer to look at that drawing and just see that it's 2 driveways side by side that some engineer in 1960 decided was the best way to access this. The property damage claims are real, they're not speculative. So we believe that the Finegans have tried to address each and every issue here and provide you a safer right-of-way and roadway in that area. When I say you, I mean the public, and I mean the Finegans. And thank you. Any questions in that regard?
Mr. Stillwell, one question that was brought up was that one of the neighbors said is this, I'll use my words, but vacating this street, who is this going to serve?
Well, the first test of any street vacation is, does it serve a public purpose as it exists now? Okay? And this planning staff report that indicates that that test has been met, that it's really not serving any public purpose. There's no thoroughfare here, okay? And it's not part of the overall public plan in that area for access. So that's the very first question under your plan and under your code. Is it serving a public purpose? And the engineering staff, the county staff has looked at that and said, no, it serves no public purpose.
No, is vacating this, who is it going to serve, the public or the Finegans?
It's going to serve the public if you do it right, because they're going to have a safer way to turn around than they have now.
Okay. And my other question is, do any of these houses on this street, do any of them have no trespassing in front of their house?
Not to my knowledge, no,
Okay.
ma'am. I will say that the comments about the size of that sign by Mr. Head are exactly spot on. I thought I tried to make that point, that your dead end sign out there coming off of the road, the main roadway, is, you can hardly see it. Whatever you do.
Yes.
Whatever you do here today.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. You have a question for Mr. Stillwell?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. That pad that's already there, is that a boat ramp?
It's not a boat ramp, it is an access to a boat lift.
Okay.
And it's approximately about 3 times larger than what we propose.
And what is it used for now then? Is it like is it the neighbor across the street?
I'm sure that he just wheels whatever, his
Who owns it?
cooler,
Brooks. He's
Mr.
raising
Brooks,
his hand.
yeah.
The Brooks own it, okay. Second question is, I just assumed back when we heard this in January that the damage was at the lighter gray pavement on lot 2. Is the damage are people going all the way to lot 1? Is there any damage at lot 1, like all the way to the end of the driveway, the last
No,
house or the first house?
Lot 2.
Okay, all the damage has been at lot 2. That's where people are turning around.
Right.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bays?
Mr. Stillwell, in your legal opinion, is there a way to get to putting a gate at the beginning of the subdivision?
During this process, okay, I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Brooks. I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Head. And I had the opportunity to speak with the attorney that spoke, and I apologize. Your name, sir. And there is a way, okay, it would require replatting of the subdivision. And what that means that every property owner would have to join together, prepare a plat, come in and say, under the dedication and section of that plat, that the roads are no longer public, but private. Now, as part of that process, both you and probably the Water Management District, and for sure the best interests of the neighbors, would have to have some sort of legal mechanism, homeowners association, whatever you want to call it, by which they would deal with the maintenance issue of those private roads. If you recall, I want to say this year, down in River Haven, we replatted one lot to get rid of an unbuilt canal that existed underneath an existing residence to clear title so those people could sell that property. So in my mind, if you had all the neighbors join in and do the replat, that presents one option. One of the troubling parts of the replat is to the extent that any one of the neighbors has a mortgage, then the mortgage bank would also have to sign off on that. It has its administrative challenges, Commissioner Bays, for sure.
Thank you. Anything else about this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I don't have any questions.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. So, any questions for Joanna? No. Okay, at this time, what's your pleasure, board?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
as much as it pains me, I am going to make a motion not to move forward with this. I do not feel that it's in the public's best interest. We're only moving the problem. It's one of those situations that as much as, you know, I like my fellow commissioner, Mrs. Finegan, this was just one of the conditions. When you purchased the property, you understood that. I have a little bit of issue also that if that's the case, you have two pieces of property that you own, but they're still separate. And to gate that off and put it at the end like that, if you wanted to sell it, you still have that same issue.
Madam Chair, I hate to interrupt, but don't you need a second for discussion
I
and
think
debate?
she's still on her motion.
Oh, this is still the motion. Okay.
So
It's a long one.
I think we can capture that.
I'll stop there. I think that's enough.
So
And I'm just
Your
going to make a
motion- Your
motion
motion is?
to deny the application.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Bays. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second it with a lot of pain as well. Same reasons that Commissioner Bays just said. I have the additional concerns. I look at that and all I can think of is how many people drive off into the river at McRae's. And that looks really dangerous to me without some sort of bollards or guardrail or something. I asked staff about that. They said there's no room to put those in there. And most critically, in January, if memory serves, we said we had to hear what your neighbors said. We needed neighborhood buy-in, and we didn't get it.
So you were seconding.
I seconded it.
Okay.
And can I not move into discussion now? No? And then for signage, I like trying the signage idea.
Okay.
And also the making the whole road private idea.
Okay.
But signage is a first easy swing.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Bays. We have a second by Commissioner Davis. I'm going to open it up to public comment, and then we'll come back to the board for their comments.
Sorry, it's this one just
Madam
hurts.
Chair?
It hurts.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you've already had your open to the public.
So we don't have to reopen that.
Correct, this is
Okay.
a public hearing.
So then I am so sorry. Continue.
No, I'm
please.
done. That's all I have. I'm worried about driving into the water. I think we should try much more aggressive signage. And we asked for neighborhood buy-in and we didn't get it. And finally, yes, all it's doing is, Commissioner Bays said, is we're just moving the problem onto other homeowners. And that's really the critical problem.
Commissioner Kennard.
This is one of those times when I should sit down here quiet, but I'm not going to. You know, I got to give the neighbors a lot of credit. It takes an awful lot of guts to come out to one of these things and say, we know why they want it, but we're not in favor of it. The Memorial Day block party is going to be a bummer. That's awful. That's awful tough to get up there and say, this is just moving the problem one house down, as Commissioner Bay said. And Commissioner Davis is exactly right. When we discussed this the first time, we wanted the neighbors' buy-in, and we didn't get that today. So unfortunately, I can't support.
This hurts. It really
this
does.
either.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion on the floor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay, so now we're at H2. Madam Clerk.
What is H2?
This is an audit on the Parks and Recreation ground maintenance.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners, County Administrator. Should we wait until
Yes,
Commissioner?
I was going to say, and if you all could do your sidebars out in the foyer, that would be great. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Davis can hear you, so you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you for that. Internal Audit, the clerk in Internal Audit appreciates the opportunity to present an audit of the Parks and Recs ground maintenance inventory. I want to personally thank Francine Nobles and Sherry Janung for their outstanding participation and cooperation during this audit, as well as my internal audit team, Robin Barclay and Alex Garner. A lot of work goes into making sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and the information that we're providing to you is valuable and useful to you and to leadership and to management in making decisions with any audit such as this. I'm very happy to say that while there were, during the audit review period, which was October the 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2022, we did have 6 findings and 4 observations during the audit. However, the majority of those particular findings and observations have already been responded to, have already been corrected. Procedures have already been put in place to respond to those recommendations, which is the best place that you want to be in an audit. The first place you want to be is, let's not find any fraud, right? Which we can say, with confidence that that has not been the case. But when you have recommendations that shore up your internal controls and your access to certain items, you really want to see those things put in place as soon as possible and response of the department to them, and they have done just that. So it's, again, huge kudos to Francine Nobles and Sherry Janung for their enthusiastic and response to our recommendations. I think that to quote my internal...
Mr. Stillwell? Thank you. Excuse me, Madam Clerk.
To quote my internal auditor, the greatest takeaways are really the opportunity, as I said, to strengthen controls and to establish consistent tracking and monitoring procedures, and also strengthening the access to the buildings, I think, is something that we highly recommended as well, that not everybody has a key to certain things. So that's really, in summation, the audit as presented, and we are here to answer any questions that you may have with regard to it.
The access to different buildings, do they have like a keypad system, or is it some different, like you're saying, bunch of different keys for a bunch of different buildings, or master key?
It's a master key.
Okay.
I don't think that, are any of them keypadded, Alice, in your recollection? Badge, key access.
Okay, thank you. Board, any questions?
Nothing.
Nothing? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Very good. Okay. So now we're at regular business E. And I'm looking, board, would you like to take the bids in their entirety or approve individually? What is your pleasure?
Madam Chair,
Yes, yes.
I'd like to pull item E1C just for discussion. I mean, I'm going to support this, but I'd like to hear more about what's going on there.
Very good. So are you making a motion for E1, A, and B?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we
E1,
that we support item E1A and B.
Second?
thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Kennard, a second by Commissioner Davis for E1A and B. Is there any public comment on these bids?
Mike Delgado, Homosassa. I'm president of PaveRight, and I'm just wondering why we would spend $200,000 more on the next bidder when we're well qualified to do this job. Everything's about money here. Last meeting, it was about the police officers not having enough money to fund. This week, it's about raises for all the employees. Where are we going to get the money? And you're going to spend $200,000 more. I just don't understand. You know, why?
We will answer your questions. We'll have, anything else you'd like to?
That's it. I think, you know, I just don't, you know, for the taxpayers' money, I think we best bang for the buck. And there's no reason to give it to the second bidder for $200,000 more for any reason, I don't think. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment on E1A or B? Okay, Mr. Howard, do you want to address the gentleman's question or have Mary address it?
Well, maybe Mary come forward on that if you could, Mary. Or, I'm sorry, Ken. This is actually Ken.
Oh,
Sorry.
this is Ken.
Apology. Yeah, this is actually utility related.
Good afternoon, Ken Cheek, Director of Public Works, Water Resources, sorry.
Been a long day.
Our understanding is this was competitively bid at the time. PaveRight was not eligible to bid, so this is awarding to the lowest qualified bidder.
Okay. They were not eligible at this time.
Right, we understand there was recent board action to reinstate them, but that was from that date forward.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Cheek?
Are we talking about E1A or E1B?
B.
I think the gentleman was talking
I think he
about
was talking about
E1A. That's why.
E1A.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Correct, Mr. Delgado, E1A?
I was talking about the Cardinal job. So it is
Okay,
B.
all right, my apologies.
Okay. Any other questions?
So, yes, I do have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead. I'm gonna go to the rest.
I'm a little confused as to why they were precluded from bidding. Was it an administrative issue, or was it something else?
My understanding, it was not a utility-related issue, but I believe it was performance on other jobs.
Well, they were.
Lack of performance on
I
other
went
jobs.
back, I read all of the information on that.
Mhm.
And what I came out of that with was the fact that it was an administrative issue as to the final payout. It had nothing, they were awarded extensions, just like on E1A here. The board approved those. But we were holding them up from being able to bid based on the fact that it was an administrative issue on the payout of what you were in disagreement about.
My understanding, again, I wasn't directly involved in that, although I was acting at a portion of this time, was the action that was taken was based on the performance on the resurfacing job that they had, lack of performance. Now, the issue with the final payout is sort of a reason why it took so long to get them reinstated, I guess is the way to put it. When this bid went out, I'm not sure they were finished with the resurfacing. I don't know the exact time frame because I wasn't involved in that side of it. But when this one was actually put out to bid, they were still in the ineligible status. But the original reason why was not because of the pay app itself. It was because of performance on the resurfacing jobs.
Well, they
That-
were,
that
but they
happened
were,
back in
they were
like-
granted, because I went back, I watched all the video, I read every piece of backup material. The board granted them the extensions. And then they were told by staff to pull off of a job, just to finish it up and pull off. That was not, there was work not left in that. And then because there was some overages for the cost, the inflation cost, which was actually cheaper than what it would at that time than what it would have been if they'd have been able to complete it on the dates required. And that was, and they're in dispute, and that was the reason that they're being precluded from bidding.
Like I said, I think the reason they were originally precluded was performance, but there are issues with the timing of when they finished the work that they had the performance issue on and when this bid happened, and I don't know how those coincide.
Now, I'm putting it out there that for $200,000, I think we're making some big mistakes.
Madam Vice Chair.
Yes.
Mayor.
Are you done?
Thank you. I actually asked the same question because if we could save over $200,000 in my briefing, I asked and was given the same answer. I'll defer to Commissioner Bays since she read the past transcripts. It was my understanding they couldn't bid because of performance on residential road resurfacing. I do know during that time they weren't allowed to bid those road resurfacing jobs. They were still doing county work for under a different section. Maybe it was under a different amount. Mr. Delgado, I'm sure, could speak to that a little better than I can. I don't know if your project, since you're not Public Works and you're not road resurfacing, that's where I'm deferring to you, Commissioner Bays, if you remember what they said, because was it just residential road resurfacing? And they were done with the project. So if we can save the money, I like that idea too. I do have a question for Mr. Delgado that I haven't had a chance to ask, and that is there was a hiccup because of this last job about asphalt. If you're doing business for county now, can you readily get asphalt and perform the work?
As of right now, we can. At the time, it was a shortage of material as far as the rock.
So you have a supplier.
Yeah, we need to stop, yeah. He would need to come to, I think we got an adequate answer. He's got supplies, so.
So I guess in essence, Commissioner Bays, you're not the only one asking. And it does seem like they were sent the notice, you know, their bid was open, they were sent a notice that they were not chosen. So I do have some questions about that too, in the interest of the county. Thank you.
Would anybody staff want to address the last one especially, I guess? Sorry, you're back in charge, but.
No,
you're
they
just sitting-
continue.
Yeah, I think, well, can you repeat
So
that?
if they were even allowed to submit a bid, shouldn't they have been stopped before they submitted a bid, or is that
Yeah,
what the
I don't-
question
yeah.
was?
Yeah, I don't know. I
And
mean,
why were you opening bids?
yeah, I don't, I mean, they did it. And, you know, I think when I went back and looked at the agenda summary document where it talked about all bidding, it didn't talk about just roads. It talked about, it was generalized, you know, looking at it. So, again, I wasn't here during that transaction in November. But that's what it stated. I think at a staff level, I've actually discussed this with purchasing. You know, you need to have some type of policy that states if you have done something, you just don't open them up. You know, and I think there's some different reasons why you may open something up, but you probably shouldn't do it. Just reject it and send them back and have some documentation saying such.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to pull E1B if that's the case. If this is $200,000 of the taxpayer dollars, I think that we need to have a longer look at this. I am totally, after watching video, reading all the backup through the whole 21, 22 of this debacle going on, I have some grave concerns about how this has been handled. And I think that needs to be some corrective actions taken to look at how we're going to handle this and move forward, because nowhere in that did I see that they were told that they could not bid. They were told that they couldn't, that they were going to be precluded from bidding off of an administrative issue, which they could not come to terms with on the payout. It had nothing to do with their work. They were told to stop work in December and pull off the job immediately.
Are you done?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis, you had something?
I just have one comment, and that is, we do have a new administration. The prior administration was not always particularly transparent with their commissioners. And I was never aware when we put a moratorium on them being able to bid paving projects that it had anything to do with their water resources work. I thought it was just paving because they couldn't get the materials to pave and they were desperately behind on so many roads. So that made sense to say, you really can't bid on any more roads till you get caught up. And so I was not aware when we took that vote that we were doing it across the board on everything that they did for the county. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
My question is, has anybody asked, because I couldn't really hear the rest of the room, but has anybody asked, this has been awarded to somebody else, correct? I'm going to ask the attorney. Has this, and if we pull this and readdress it, what's the ramifications of that?
I think the primary ramification, we should ask Mr. Cheek what it has to do with the project that he's been waiting to do to get the contractor. And before we go there, I have a letter here that I could read for the board to help the board understand what Mr. Delgado was told and not told.
Okay.
I don't know if it was in the backup material that you have or not, but on November 17th of 2022, our purchasing department sent a letter to L. Michael Delgado, President, PayRight Inc., 3411 West Krieger Court, Lecanto. Hopefully that's their correct address. It says, Mr. Delgado, on November 7th, the Board of County Commissioners approved a 60-day extension on the residential road resurfacing for fiscal year 2021-2022 project. However, the board also determined that PayRight Inc. would not be allowed to bid on any county projects and will not be awarded any county projects until all outstanding projects are completed. Therefore, please be advised that any bids submitted by PayRight will be rejected until further notice and completion of the current outstanding projects. So the letter that was sent to them doesn't make a distinction between water resources or roads. It simply says projects, and it says that they will be rejected. I have no explanation why on a few occasions they were opened, but I would say that perhaps staff made an error in opening them after they had sent out the letter telling them they wouldn't be opened. So I don't know if Mr. Cheek wants to talk about this project. I believe that the successful bidder is waiting and has been notified that they are the successful low bidder. But I don't know how your project's going to go.
I would just say this project contains ARPA funds. As you know, we have a time frame to spend those. This is basically an economic development project centered around the interchange and Cardinal. We have had commercial interest in development interest adjacent to the project. So based on those two issues, we just want to move this project forward as fast as we can. I'm concerned with the time frame on the ARPA money. This is a pretty good sized project, so.
Thank you. I'm going to say this is BS, meaning before Steve, but this is exactly what Commissioner Davis was saying. I was under the same impression it was about paving, and we don't have that letter in this backup. If you hadn't read it, we wouldn't know it. I haven't seen that. So I feel like we're not getting the whole story.
I have another thing. I think Mary has a discussion about what happened to the road resurfacing project, because I think, aren't you awarding, isn't there another item on this agenda about this? I don't know if you all want to hear from Mary on that
Well, I
too.
tried to hear from Mary in the beginning, and she gave it to Ken, so yes. Come on, Mary, come on down. But, Mr. Howard, in the future, could you please make sure we get all that in our backup?
We will. Yeah, we'll ensure that you have the whole chain of events chronological.
So E1A is awarding the work that PaveRight was not able to complete to Superior, our current resurfacing contractor. So unfortunately, in December, PaveRight was told to stop because they were milling roads. We have an actual standard that says you have to pave over your milled road within that day. And PaveRight was milling a bunch of roads and leaving them unpaved for several days at a time, which is against our standards. So we told them to stop milling, not stop work. We said stop milling, pave those roads, because that final 60-day extension that we had given them, that the board did, they couldn't pave all those roads. So the order was stop milling. You need to pave the roads because it's our law, it's in our standards, and you cannot leave those milled roads. They did leave milled roads. There's roads out there that, I believe there's 2 that PaveRight milled in December and still didn't get to when they were told to stop milling. So Superior is going to come, and that is what E1A is about, is to award that extra 35 miles, I believe it is, to Superior, and that is the work that PaveRight did not do. They had 120 original days to do the contract. We awarded them 180 days extra on top of the 120, and they were not able to do all that work. And so Superior will come back. If E1A is approved, they will do Superior or PaveRight's work that they didn't get to.
And is that costing us additional money?
It is not. Superior's bid was fantastic.
Okay.
We are very thankful for Superior in their low bid. It is the budget. Yeah,
Okay,
it's under
well,
budget.
we're talking about E1B, and I appreciate that information, but my question was, if this was awarded already, are there ramifications for us to pull this and start over? And you said the ramifications might be for the project itself. Is there legal ramifications?
I believe the person that was ostensibly the low bidder has been notified, but I don't believe that they can challenge it at this point. But you all also have to remember that at the last meeting, you followed Commissioner Kennard's agenda item. So are you all reconsidering the motion that you did last time? Because last time you guys did a motion saying from here on out, And I think there was specific reasons why Commissioner Kennard worded the agenda memo the way he did, that there were two options. You had option A to award it, I can't remember what the language was, backwards, some amount, and then, or B was to do it going forward, and you all moved to go forward. So that's why staff put this on the agenda, because you all made the motion last time that they would be awarded going forward. So staff probably wouldn't have put this on the agenda if you hadn't done what you did at the last meeting. I don't know if Commissioner Kennard remembers that. I didn't understand it to be.
Commissioner Kennard.
Well, no doubt this is much messier than most of our bids, or for that matter, all of our bids. I would concur with what Commissioner Davis shared, that when the board supported not allowing PaveRight to participate in any further county projects at that time, my understanding, or at least my belief anyway, was we were talking about road resurfacing projects and not utility projects. That's behind us. Going forward, they obviously were prohibited from bidding on county projects. At the time that this project was bid, that bid probably should not have been opened, and consequently the lowest qualified bidder is this Cathcart Construction Company, who should be awarded the bid. Now, we can make it as messy as we want, or go back and rehash this stuff, but you've got the utilities director up here asking us to move this forward. I would add that when I've got a question about utilities issues, Ken Cheek's opinion on things carries a tremendous amount of weight. If he's telling me or indicating that the best path forward at this point, I understand PaveRight's desire to have this project, and I like to save $200,000 as much as the next guy, or ladies. At this point, I think the cleanest path forward is award this bid as it's written here, move forward. PaveRight is back on our bidders list, if you will, and can fully participate in road resurfacing bids and utility projects. And in the future, it should be much more clear that it's not just going to be about road resurfacing, but about any projects that the county would have. So I would support it. I've made a motion. I don't recall if you've got a second motion or not, but I would support moving forward with
Did we have a
E1A
motion on
and
the
B.
floor?
Yes.
Oh, for the bids, yes.
Yes, for
Thank you.
E1 and
Commissioner
Madam Chair.
Davis? Yes. Go to the attorney and then to Commissioner Davis. Yes.
I'm sorry, I did want to correct one thing I said. I did pull up the motion from last time. I want to make sure that I didn't misspeak. The options were one, to continue the status quo as provided at the November 7th, 22 meeting. That was when they were suspended. Or to reinstate the contractor moving forward. And you all voted for number 2, reinstate. And I think I said that wrong the first time, so I apologize.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis?
I'm going to make this very quick. Commissioner Kennard, ditto on everything. Exactly right. And I am worried about the ARPA funds and economic development, and for process and procedure, and that reason, yes. I had to throw in a few extra words.
Commissioner Finegan?
Mr. Cheek, if we waited 2 weeks or we awarded it to someone different, does that put you out of the ballpark? Is your turnaround that tight?
I'm not sure we can get it back with a new bid in that amount of time frame. Typically, I think we put these things out for 30 days. Now it's already been seen. The issue with putting it back out, of course, is everybody's seen everybody else's bids now. So there's some problems with doing just a straight rebid. If there was some reason like it was so over budget we couldn't do it or something like that and we had to rebid it, we usually go back and reduce the scope to do that. But to bid the same exact project over again, I think could be problematic. I don't know from a purchasing standpoint.
Again? Would you have to do the bid all
Yes.
back over?
Yes.
Yes. Because, I mean, everything's already been opened and out, and
You're probably talking roughly month and a half to get it back to you, I would think. 2 months?
2 months. We're seeing 2 months from OMB.
I would just like to say too, just for the record, there's no staff issue with PayRight in terms of working with them. They've done a lot of good work for us over the years. We have no, animosity towards PayRight or anything. It's just, we're just trying to follow the procedure that we believe you guys directed us to use when we went through this process.
Commissioner Finegan, you have the floor.
Relinquish the floor. Thank you.
I asked if there was any legal ramifications for revisiting this. Mr. Cheek?
Sorry?
I wanted to wait for you to. If there's no legal ramifications for us to put it back out to bid, I think that might even help us because the numbers are out there. But also, I'm going to lean towards pulling this because one, $200,000, we talk about money constantly, and PayRight's a local company. This was awarded to a company outside of the county. And I'm always going to try to get our next door neighbors as much as we can. Doesn't dismiss how much I respect you and you following what you thought we told you, and I can see why it would be confusing. So this doesn't have any reflection on you. And I appreciate all that you do for us. So,
Madam Chair,
yes, sir. And then I'm going to go to Commissioner Davis.
our attorney didn't say there weren't any legal ramifications.
I've been asking. That's why I said it again.
And I believe the answer was possibly. She didn't say there weren't any legal ramifications to rebidding this thing. So that is, I'm sure it was unintentional, but that is putting words in her mouth that we shouldn't do up here. We've got our utilities director, our county attorney, our budget director, all saying that we should stick with the process that is laid out. It's a very methodical, it's a very logical process. Unfortunately, there was some confusion back in November, and PayRight got caught up in it. At this point, it means that this project could have gotten completed for $200,000 less had this board cleared things up, had PayRight helped us get things cleared up back in November and December and January, February, March. I mean, all of that time went by when we could have and should have gotten this cleared up. That didn't happen. We're here today. They're back on the bidders list. I think it's time to move forward with the process. If we're going to talk about how much we support staff, how much we look to staff, how much we lean on staff, then we really ought to listen to them. I'm done. Promise.
I hear you, and I would still like my question answered. Have we ever made a mistake in the bid process and had to rebid?
Have we ever? Yes, ma'am, I'm sure.
And were there legal ramifications when we had to do that?
There could be. I can't. May I ask of Mr. Cheek, how much is the contract worth?
Sure.
Are we talking 100,000, 3 million?
It's $2,282,000.
So for $2,282,000, somebody might try to challenge it because that's a lot of money. So I can't tell you unequivocally that they're not going to challenge it because they're going to lose $2 million.
Okay, Commissioner Davis, Commissioner Bays, Commissioner Finegan.
Mr. Cheek, can you enumerate for the board exactly what the issues are on, you said everybody's seen their numbers already, and what is the problem with rebidding? Just because I do always want to go an extra mile for a Citrus County business, but I'm still in favor, I'm still aligned with Commissioner Kennard at this point.
I would say at the staff level, we're with you. We work with these guys a lot. They're here when we have emergency and we need help. They're the ones that are close by. On the other side, a company like Cathcart, they're from just south of us here. We've had trouble getting large numbers of bidders to our projects. If they are the apparent awardee on this project, and then it gets pulled for some other reason, I think you may find out they don't bid it the next time, and we lose a potential bidder for our projects. I can't say that for sure, but I think they're going to look at it from a perspective like, well, they're not going to award it to us anyway, so why bother bidding? That would be my concern. I don't know that that's the fact.
That brings to mind some very wise words that someone said to me early in my term, that what businesses want more than anything is consistency. So if we're inconsistent, that sends a bad message. Inconsistent in the application of our policy, that is.
Commissioner Bays.
I hear what's being said as far as a legal challenge, but what's to say that Mr. Delgado and his firm won't challenge and have a legal issue with this?
Well, that wasn't the question I was asked, but certainly they could potentially do that. They used the alternative dispute resolution process that was provided for them in the contract, and staff looked at that and they received their response to that. So the only thing that they could do is challenge the bidding process, which I believe they're outside of that. But certainly anyone can bring legal action.
Commissioner Finegan.
That was my question. The opposite of what you asked. What's the legal ramifications if we don't rebid this? I think that's been answered.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cheek. Is there any further board comment? And we already opened it to the public, correct? Yes, because Mr. Delgado came forward. Okay, so at this time, we have a motion on the floor to approve bids E1A and E1B. I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Kennard, a second on the floor from Commissioner Davis, and there's no further board comments. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Nay.
That fails 2-3. So board, I'm looking for a motion.
Madam Chair, motion to approve E1C, and I'd like first swing at explaining it.
Well, we got to deal with E1A and E1B.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve E1A.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Commissioner
Oh,
Finegan.
I'm so sorry, I totally missed that procedure.
A second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak about bid E1A? Seeing none, is there any further board comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That passes. No, nay, excuse me. Okay, that passes 4-1. E1B. Board, what is your pleasure?
Motion to approve E1B.
We've had
No,
that motion.
That failed.
That
No,
motion-
but it failed on A and B.
Okay. All right,
Don't we have
well, I'll
to do-
second
Don't we
the
have to do
motion.
it separately?
I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Davis for approval of E1B, a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public comment on E1B? Yes, yes, that's for Cardinal.
Apparently we are too.
I'm not confused. It's, you have to come to the podium and please give us your name again and where you live.
Mike Delgado, Homosassa. The bidding process. and the banning process. Did anybody read the paragraph, how to ban a bidder? Because none of the procedures were followed correctly. We got a letter. We're supposed to have a sit-down meeting with the staff, give out the reasons why not, and we were not presented any of that. We just got a letter in the mail. So the procedures are completely wrong. So how can we be banned? And utilities is a separate division of us, not paving. So I shouldn't even be standing here.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comments on E1B? Board, any comments? I have a motion on the floor to approve E1B by Commissioner Davis, second by Commissioner Kennard. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Nay. That fails 2-3. So board, we're back to E1B. What is your
E1.
pleasure?
We just did that.
E1C,
It failed.
yeah.
Your motion failed. So we move.
So you have to do
We have to
something with
do it
it.
again. We can't just ignore it.
Huh?
I know what I'm doing, people.
Okay.
Yeah, what are you gonna do with B? You gotta
Yeah.
either deny it or approve it or table it, or you
I
gotta
thought
tell
we just
staff what to
denied
do.
it.
You have to address this bid. We denied this bid for the approval of the bid. So are we just going to ignore a bid? We can't ignore it. We have to decide, are we gonna put it back out for bid?
So you're gonna, you need to move to deny B.
I thought that's what we just did.
No, she did it for approval
She did
of B.
approval.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Would you like me to make that motion for you?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
I will make a motion to deny E1B.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Finegan. Thank you. A second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public comment to deny E1B? Seeing none, is there any further board comment? All in favor of denying E1B, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. That passes 5-0. Thank you, Commissioner Finegan. E1C was pulled for discussion.
Motion to approve E1C.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. I wanna hear the reason that we're parting ways with them.
Madam Chair?
I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there any public comment on E1C? Seeing none, Commissioner Davis.
Yes, the advertising world has moved dramatically to online versus print publications. It takes an extraordinary amount of staff time to prepare that publication. And instead, what we have done is contracted with our web firm, the TDC's web firm, to actually sell, instead of selling the advertising space in the print publication, we're now selling it through the website. And the really cool thing that we've done is typically the VCB would be getting a percentage as the owner of the website. Instead, we're recycling it back into lowering the ad costs for our local businesses to advertise on there. And there's very strict guidelines as to who can advertise on the VCB site.
Okay.
So it's
Just
a huge,
interested.
huge staff savings.
Yep, good.
And I believe we're discontinuing this contract very honorably too. Like, I don't think we're doing any businesses wrong.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there any further board discussion? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That passes 5-0. Thank you. Thought this was going to be an easy meeting. Okay, E2. Board, I'm looking for your
Motion to-
pleasure.
Motion to approve E2?
Thank you. I have a motion to approve budget transfers by Commissioner Davis. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public comment on E2? Seeing none, is there any further board comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That passes 5-0. E3, budget resolutions. Board, what is your pleasure?
Motion to approve E3?
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
second by Commissioner Bays. Is there any public comment on E3? Seeing none, is there any board comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That passes 5-0. Thank you. E4, commercial property and equipment breakdown insurance. Board?
Motion to approve E4. A and
Second.
B.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kennard for approval E4, A, and B, second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, is there any further board comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passes 5-0. E5, IMP-20-02 Belmont Hills Unit 3.
Motion to approve E5.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis. I have a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public comment on E5? Is there any board comment on E5?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bays.
I just would like to point out in this that as a board, we are not accepting roads, and this item says perpetual private maintenance of improvements, roadways, and stormwater, just for edification. So it does not mean we're accepting the roads.
Are you?
That's it. I just want to make sure everybody's perfectly clear about it.
Well, I believe and I understand that we may or may not accept future roads. And in this case, they're asking that we may accept this. So is there any other board comments on this? I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Bays. But it's not that we aren't accepting them, period. We may accept.
It says perpetual private maintenance.
No?
And I think that answers it right there.
It's private maintenance.
Oh, okay,
When we-
okay.
When we spoke, it was for the utilities and things. It wasn't the
Oh,
private.
I beg your pardon. Thank you. Thank you.
And I was going to speak to it as you asked me to.
And please do, please.
Oh, Commissioner Bays did it.
Oh, can you read that one more time for me then, Commissioner Bays?
Says for perpetual private maintenance of subdivision improvements, roadways, and stormwater facilities with potable water improvements being publicly owned and maintained facilities. So as the board recently adopted an administrative regulation that we may or may not accept roads, we are not accepting roads. These roads are for perpetual private maintenance.
Say that 3 times. Okay, thank you, and thank you for clearing that up.
May I just,
Yes.
the only thing is, we haven't accepted an administrative regulation. It is up to the discretion of the county engineer to bring it forward to you, and then based upon the engineer's recommendation, you'll decide whether to accept them or not. But your direction was very clear.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any further board comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That passes 5-0. E6, Waste Disposable Account Agreement. Board, I'm looking for a motion for E6, A, B, C, and D.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Bays,
Second.
second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, is there any board comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0 right now. E7.
I'll make a motion to approve E7.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finegan, a second by Commissioner Bays. Is there any public comment on E7? Is there any further board comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 4-0 at this moment. E8, Citrus Springs 2023 Assessment Area. DVR 2023-002 and DVR 2023-003.
Motion to approve item E8, A and B.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Kennard, second by Commissioner Finegan. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, is there any further board comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please, Commissioner Bays.
I would like some explanation of exactly the permanent reassignment of development rights agreement for these, so that it's my understanding that this is a way to avoid the assessments, but are the property owners aware that what I could or may at some other time there could be potential impacts that could cost them in other terms? So, I mean, you're giving up one thing, you're eliminating a fee maybe on one side, but you could potentially cost yourself on something else. And I just want to make sure that.
Mr. Howard?
Yeah, and I think we talked about that, trying to find a way to do that. So I know at a staff level, we're talking about that after our discussions we had.
So what the applicant is doing is taking lots 12, 13, 14, and 15 and putting them under, making it one.
Yeah, and I think I think what you were saying is some cause and effect, obviously, with that future implications. So those are things we would, how could you disclose that to them? And me and Mary's had some conversations with yourself as well to see how do we go about trying to disclose that.
Has that been disclosed to the applicant?
Not at this point, no, that I'm aware of. But Mary, could you come forward?
Don't we?
I'm not sure what she's done to date as far, but some of the discussions you had was a little bit, I think, broader than what we were talking about.
I think the process is written in something, but we have a process. It's a administrative Can we get one of them to talk?
Yeah, Mary, if you come forward, please.
I think it's in I know our land section processes these, and I believe there's an administrative regulation and there's something that gets sent to the property owner. I might be wrong. I don't know.
Yes, our attorney, Ms. Lynn, Mary Jensen, Public Works Director. Attorney Lynn is correct. So what happens is when we are looking at doing water or sewer assessments, the land section will send out a letter to these multiple lot owners, and it will tell them, and this is just for water and sewer. It's not for road resurfacing. It's not for any other fire, any other assessment. So it's a process that land section actually goes, and we send the county, we send the letters to lot owners that have multiple lots, and they let them know, in the future, if you don't combine these lots, you will pay an assessment for water and or sewer, depending on what assessment is coming up in the future, that you will pay an assessment on every single one of your lots. However, you can go through this other process. It's just an informational letter, like Attorney Lynn was stating. We tell them all their rights. We never do this for road resurfacing. It has nothing to do with that. It's just basically for assessments. And the property owner is told everything about the assessment and what they will pay if they don't combine their lots, but it's completely up to them. And this is just a standard process we go through. As far as a road resurfacing assessment, it has nothing to do with that. It'll never be part of the road resurfacing. However many lots you own, it doesn't change for road resurfacing. It's never combined for road resurfacing, put it that way. This is just water and sewer. It does not change any other assessment we do. Just water and sewer.
Does that answer your question?
So for water and sewer, they're combining all 4 of these lots into one parcel. And so they give up all development rights for the future, correct?
Correct.
Can never be reversed.
If you replat it, you can, but that would be approval through our staff and then the board. But yes, basically, you can't ever go back for the most part.
So then if we came in and we said we were going to do a linear footage on the front of your property for road surfacing, if they own 4 lots contiguous across the front, they would be charged that front footage, correct?
Either way, they would be charged the same. They wouldn't benefit either way. This process will not benefit them either way for road resurfacing. It would not change that. The footage would be the same whether they owned 4 lots or had one humongous lot. It's still the same frontage.
I disagree with that.
Because if you charge per lineal, but if you don't, then if we're only charging.
So this doesn't change how we would look at it through road resurfacing. It would still be 5 lots.
Okay.
So road resurfacing is never going to go through this process that water and sewer do. Road resurfacing would just be for the 5 lots. It always would be separate. This doesn't change those rights for road resurfacing. However, we would do an MSBU or an MSTU. It would never affect that.
I guess my point is them understanding that by combining these lots, they give it up on here and they give up the right for development. But do they understand by giving up their rights to develop and combining these, that then the potential for the cost of road maintenance could cost them extra at some point? It's the one hand versus the other.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Think of it this way. So I think the one that we were all so thinking about lately is Cambridge Greens. So you know how they have to pay an assessment to hook up and so forth. So what we're saying to these folks is you have 4 lots. Do you want 4 water hookups or do you want 1 water hookup?
I'm not disputing that. What I'm trying to say is I agree. I understand that part. But I also want people to be aware that what you gain on one side, you might potentially create another expense to you on the other side. That's all I'm trying to say is I want to make sure. I don't want more Inverness Village 4. I don't want people coming back here and acting surprised. I just would like people to be fully aware. Same thing happened when we had an 85% grant in Crystal River to do sewer back in 2011, 2012. People built houses, they put in these high-performing septic tanks, and within a year later, we told them, dig them out, cave them in, you're hooking up. That's all I'm saying. I want people to be fully aware of what potential cost. If we know that we're going to be putting sewer lines in somewhere, we should be sending letters out. People may want to defer building for a year. I don't know. That's not my game. I just think that we should make people fully aware of where we're going in the future.
I wasn't finished.
Go ahead.
So when you do a special assessment for road paving, for like a MSB or MSTU, that by law has to be done on a basis. We usually in this county choose the front foot basis. So it's apples and oranges to the water hookup and the road resurfacing if it would be an MSBU or MSTU or something like that. So they're completely different. My experience with the land section has been that they fully explain to the people the significant decision they're making when they do these DVRs. And I venture to guess that they probably also tell them to seek counsel. Because remember, y'all did, not this board, but a previous board did the same thing with the unity of title issue. Remember how it was, you combine your lots, and they actually have to sign something similar to this, putting them on notice that, hey, you're giving up significant legal rights. So I think that the process works in terms of at least making the disclosure. But you can bring a horse to water, but can't always have them drink. But my experience with the land section is they do a really good job of explaining to the people, are you sure you want to do this? Save a penny today kind of analysis. You're not going to have to pay for 3 or 4 hookups, but down the road when you sell it, your buyer's not going to be able to hook up.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, I want to say 3 things. You said, isn't there a letter, da-da-da-da-da? Well, guess what? We don't see that letter. And that would be helpful, again, as much information as you could give us, because we're making a lot of decisions. This might be great we're handling all the divisions. Y'all are just handling one department at a time. And so you know this by the back of your hand. Second point is, I agree with what Commissioner Bays is saying, because in this situation, which street is the mailbox going to be on? Is it going to be on West Webster? Is it going to be on North Trojan? Or is it going to be on West Marshall? And that will make a determination about that for frontage, because this is a corner and there's a whole lot of frontage, and you're saying, oh, it works out, it washes out, but looking at me, if your mailbox is on West Marshall, that's a smaller frontage than it is on West Webster, and it's definitely a smaller frontage than if it was on Trojan. So I understand what she's saying, that there are consequences to this, and it would be nice to know. Like, where is the mailbox going?
As far as road resurfacing, it's still looked at as 4 lots. This is just for water and sewer.
Okay.
What happens, so when we go and do our assessments, it's per lot, or however we do it, per foot, but this does not carry over to road resurfacing and how the land section does the road resurfacing. This is just for hookups for water and sewer.
But again, what I'm saying is I appreciate that. I appreciate all the hard work staff does. I'm there for you. I couldn't do my job without you, but I would like a little more information so that we didn't have to ask these questions like this. Any other comments? No? Okay. So we have a motion on, thank you, Mary. We have a motion on the floor for E8 for approval of A and B. Motion by Commissioner Kennard, second by Commissioner Finegan. Is there any, did I open it up to the public? Yes. Is there any further board comments? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passes 4-0 right now. Commissioner Davis, E6.
Aye.
Commissioner Davis, E7.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Kennard, aye on E8, A and B. Okay, E9, Core Civic Contract Monitoring Update for April 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Bays. I heard Commissioner Davis first. Is there any public comment on E9? Is there any further board comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That passes 5-0. E10, Jail Contract Monitor.
Motion to approve E10.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Davis, second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public comment on E10, Jail Contract Monitor? Is there any further board comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That passes 5-0. E11,
Yeah,
Office of Utility and Regulation.
this is a request to allow us to move forward with an executive director consultant to help us and assist us with standard operating procedures for the Office of Utility Regulation, track and assess the rate adjustment request for review of rate cases, price index, and limited rate proceeding. This would be just a part-time consultant position, not to exceed $33,000, and we'd ask for approval to do that. This would also be subject to the county attorney reviewing the agreement as well, and then also the chair signing this as well. Recommend approval. This is also being budgeted funded from the utility fee trust account from the Office of Utility Regulation.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm supposed to negotiate with the,
No, it's asked, what it's asked for you, we'll negotiate, but if you'll just review the agreement, that's what it asks.
as soon as negotiations have been completed with the consultant and the county attorney's office. Okay.
Has reviewed.
I apologize, I didn't
Nope, you
read the
just
whole
review it.
thing.
We'd like you, if you'd like to negotiate, we'd let you do that too.
No, thank you.
I have a motion by Commissioner Bays. Commissioner Finegan, were you the second? Yes, sir. Thank you. Is there any public comment on E11, A and B? Seeing none, is there any further board comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. F, outstanding commission items. Mr. Howard.
There's really just one I want to bring your attention to. Number one, which has been on there, I think since 2017, resolve the landfill issue and land swap with forestry. We're going to move forward rapidly on trying to get some meetings together. The clock is running out for us, so there is a sense of urgency. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. We'll get you a better date on that, but the rest we've reported previously about the airport and also the Betts Farm update. That's still, we're waiting to hear back from Mr. Achari with that due date closing by June the 7th. So we'll see where that is and update you the next board meeting.
Thank you. G, County Administrator, Mr. Steve Howard, G1, Development,
Yes, this is just
Land Development.
request for consideration of the development agreement amendment with Edge Development Partners LLC for Crystal Point Phases 2 and 3 and allow staff just to proceed with the review and public hearings only. That's what we're requesting.
Thank you. Board?
Motion approved, G1.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Kennard. Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Is there any public comment on G1? Seeing none, any further board comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. There are, let's see, there are no advisory appointments, committee reports. Item J, Commissioner Finegan.
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Kennard.
Yeah, we had a meeting of the Withlacoochee Regional Water Supply Authority, and it's relatively uneventful, other than talking about how much money they've got, our money. And what I did find interesting about it, though, was the permitted quantities of water for our county, our neighboring counties, and a couple new applications that are in with the district that I think people need to be paying attention to. I'm as guilty as anyone for not seeing this before, because a couple permits have been in along with ours since last year. But just to give you an idea, it looks just rough numbers. Citrus County looks like we're currently permitted through all of our different water production facilities for roughly 15 million gallons a day. Hernando County is permitted roughly 26 million gallons per day. Marion County, between Swift Mud and St. Johns River districts, they're permitted for about 39 million gallons per day. And Sumter County currently is about equivalent to ours. Now, the county itself does not have water system. The different cities do, and naturally the villages do. But all of their permits total currently about 15 million gallons per day. What is interesting is that the villages, or under, what's the name under? Blue Goose Utility Company and Blue Goose Water Conservation Authority have applications in with the district for an additional 11 million gallons per day. Now, the district has not approved that yet, nor have they approved our very small request to get our Charles A. Black facility back up to where it should be at 7 million is the ask. We're at 4 or 5 million, somewhere in that neighborhood currently. But they're looking for an additional 11 million. Why do I throw out all these big numbers? Those are millions of gallons per day of water. The district's job, if and when they approve these, and that was only 2 of the new applications that are in. The district's job, if and when they approve these applications, will be to find the water. Remember what I started with, our current water usage, our current permitted amount is 15 million gallons per day. With all of the rivers that we have, the only place in the world where there's 3 first magnitude springs, and our border is the Withlacoochee River, where do you think they're going to go looking for all this water that they're needing? For both Sumter County and Marion County. Hernando County is in pretty good shape. What they've got to look out for is Tampa Bay water. Tampa Bay water pulls a good portion of their water from the aquifer right underneath of Hernando County. At one point, Tampa Bay Water, to feed all of the counties that they service, they were pulling 70% of their water from right underneath of Hernando County to provide water for Pinellas, Hillsborough, Pasco, Polk, whatever areas Tampa Bay Water serves. The reason I say this, and I'll get off it here shortly for this meeting, is that we need to be paying attention. Where this water is going to come from is either the groundwater, which there's probably not enough to service that, or surface water. The surface water operations or plant locations they're looking at are out on the Withlacoochee River, up by the Rainbow River. I would be very, very concerned if I lived in the northwest part of this county where the Withlacoochee River flows, because they are coming for that water. That is where this water is going to come from. My understanding, and I'm way out of my league here, but my understanding is that surface water is very expensive to treat and get it to a potable level. So they're going to take what they can from the ground first, and then it'll come off of that river. So anyway, that was the good news, more good news from the Water Authority.
Thank you,
That's
sir.
all I've got.
Miss Lynn.
Cheek has some good news about that permit.
Oh, I would love to hear some good news.
Since you
about
brought it up, I thought I'd.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes, ma'am. Ken Cheek again. We did get a draft permit from the district at the quantities we requested. We still have a few small questions that we're ironing out with them, but we had a meeting with them a while back, and it seems like we came to an understanding on where we're at. Looks like they are going to issue it at the quantities we need for a 20-year permit. So that's with some minor additional monitoring of some lake levels that we're going to have to do for them just to confirm that we're not having any negative impact. Looks like we're going to get our numbers.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for the good news.
Thank
well, props
you.
to the district for doing that.
Commissioner Kennard, I've heard you talking about this for many years. Is there any hope for us? I mean, I know you're one vote, but is there any way out of this situation?
No.
So we just keep complaining about it.
No, we're outvoted. We are the Charles A. Black well field is the only water supply facility that the authority owns. And Citrus County utility customers we pay for the maintenance on that. We pay for the personnel to maintain it. We paid for the majority of the facility we repaid. And now we pay for every single gallon that comes out of that facility. Of the 4 counties that are in the water authority, we are the only one who has allowed them to control our water production facility. None of the others are going to do it.
And how did we get in this situation?
2016, the contract with the water authority was changed. There was one particular commissioner driving that. And we went from the contract changed from repaying the balance owed on the water facility, on the Charles A. Black facility. The contract was changed to paying per, I think it's at 100,000 gallons per day or something like that. We pay per gallon of water that comes out of that. So we're no longer repaying on that note, but instead in perpetuity, we're going to pay for every gallon that comes out of it. And we pay as I said, it's our personnel maintaining it. So we pay for the maintenance of it, and we pay for every gallon that comes out of it. We are the only county that got ourselves in that situation.
Were you working here in 2016? I was. Okay.
I was, and that's one of y'all get on to me about what dumb-butted lawyer got us into this contract. That's why I always make sure I
Duck and cover. Well, once again, you brought me great news. Thank you for that.
Madam Chair. I have a
Commissioner
question.
Davis.
Is there any more talk of a reservoir? Because I know we had talked about that would be one of the benefits of too far getting the lakes down to the sand instead of all the vegetative matter. It would actually hold more water, and that could be the reservoir, far more cost effective than building the multi-million-dollar one.
Well, certainly the swamps along the river are the areas that should be providing that reservoir. And the idea behind Swift Mud's project that the legislature has given them a significant amount of money to explore is removing the sediment at the bottom so it hold a greater quantity of water. The science seems to be a bit questionable. Swift Mud doesn't support it. They don't
Are you
think.
talking about this, I'm sorry, the swamps feeding
Yeah.
the Withlacoochee versus Salapopka?
This is the they are talking about doing this in Salapopka, removing the sediment from the bottom of a section of one of the lakes. It sounds like a great idea. Hopefully it works. I support the idea. I like the thought. We'll see what happens there. The surface water production facilities that have been discussed at the Water Authority, speaking of which, I'm the new chair.
You were absent that day, right?
The surface water production facilities that they're talking about, or that has been discussed in the past, are reservoirs, man-made reservoirs, that would siphon off water at high water times during the river, and stored in these big reservoirs. I forget now what the price of construction, the estimated cost of construction was, but it was pretty astronomical. And they were looking at a couple areas where there's very high flows of water to fill these reservoirs. And we'll see what happens. That has not been decided, but the consultant that the Water Authority hired to bring forward options that may be out there for the Water Authority area, this seems to be the where they were going with it. Desal plant is not really an option any longer because we don't have the high water outflow that we once had from the nuke plant. And you've got to have that high outflow to dilute the salt that comes out of the desal plant. So
Got it.
Thank you. Anything
Mhm.
else?
that's it.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bays?
Nothing.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis?
Well, as we all may recall, we had a fairly brutally long meeting last time, so I deferred my medical examiner report till this meeting to try to take a little pity on us.
Can I interrupt you for a second? You have N1.
We're still on committee reports. You didn't call me about committee.
Okay. Pardon
Thank you.
me. Never mind.
You managed to skip right by me. So I am the chair of the Medical Examiner Board for Districts 5 and 24. And it is funded by 6 counties. So nobody really likes to talk about, as I jokingly call it, the death board. Nobody likes to talk about death, but that's a really important part when your loved ones have died and they need an autopsy. It's a really critical part of government to provide these services. So we are currently in a really bad situation from a salaries that we're able to offer perspective. And I should back up. It's funded by the 6 counties, which is District 5 plus Seminole. They don't like their district, apparently, so they joined our district. It is charged on a per capita basis currently. And so our share this year actually went down a little bit because other counties grew more than we did, or we went up very slightly, something like that. So we only have 4 medical examiners. We need 6, dead minimum. We need a new morgue because with more population in the state of Florida comes more dead people. So we're not only looking at that having to be as part of our CIP, we're really doing a deep dive into the finances of running this operation. So we have a contractor who's been absolutely does a yeoman's task of trying to keep our costs down as much as possible. a huge part of being a medical examiner is that you have to go to a lot of various court cases to provide testimony. Literally, Dr. Wolf, who runs that whole outfit, has basically been asked by attorneys to be in all 6 counties in one day to give depositions. We just lost, went down to 4. We had just hired a 5th medical examiner, and then all of a sudden we lose one to the state of Texas for, wait for it, 40% more salary. That's the kind of numbers we're dealing with. So I just signed a letter that's going to all of our federal representatives, senators, congressmen, et cetera. The state pays for state prisoners. We are paid by the state for the autopsies that we perform for prisoners that die in the prison system. The feds don't pay us at all, so we're having to absorb that cost. So we're looking at multiple routes to try to make sure that we do as light a touch on the county tax rolls or tax dollars as we can, to make sure that everyone's paying their fair share. And right now the feds are kind of skating on that. And it's a pretty, you can imagine when Dr. Wolf is literally out giving testimony all week, she's not working on bodies. So we're down a hole, and it's just really gotten ugly. So now with the staff turnover too, the one we just lost to Texas, they're having to testify on her cases as well. So this may be boring to some people. I find it fascinating, and I've just never given a long report on what's up with the medical examiner board, so that's it.
Thank you. Do you have any other committee reports?
Nope, we had a short, it was 11, we had a short, we didn't even have 2 weeks.
Thank you. I have no committee reports. Commissioner Finegan, do you have anything? Commissioner Kennard, anything? We'll go back to Commissioner Bays. Commissioner Davis, you have something on the agenda, N1.
N1.
Eric is out because he's at a FEMA training. Oh, Joanna is in the audience. She was going to be here to step in. Here she comes behind me. They're going to get her real quick. She's going to give an update on behalf
Commissioner Bays, do you
Eric.
have any, do you have anything to report?
We just sent out our invitation to our committee members, and then also we're sending one out to the public for our behavioral health symposium. It's going to be June 16th. We're inviting the public also that just to observe, and they will have to register by Doug's email. So it's Doug, doug.wright@citrusbocc.com. So if you have any interest as the public to attend, please register with him. That's all I have.
Thank you. Circle back to N1.
All right, Joanna, if
you're
you
up.
come forward and just give us a update, please.
The moratorium's in place. Permits are not being issued. There's a couple cases that are scheduled for the June special master code compliance for some of the items like tree removal, those kind of things. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I did hear from Eric that we're getting 3 to 5 calls a day from the associated parties.
Yeah, they are doing weekly inspections very regularly too. Yes.
Yeah. So,
Thank you. Okay, anything else?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. I have nothing. Item P, Denise Diamond Lynn.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up to the public for the second time. Is there anyone that would like to speak? You have 3 minutes. Unless you have a letter on file, you get 5 minutes. Going once, going twice, closed. Okay, upcoming meetings, June 6th, 1 p.m. right here. June 20th, 2023 at 1 p.m. Regular meeting, and a regular meeting July 11th, 2023 at 1 p.m. We have upcoming workshops. We have the workshop for the airports, Crystal River and Inverness. They're going to be done separately, not simultaneous. I mean, they're going to be Crystal River and then Inverness. Who's handling that? Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, Mary, they'll
Okay.
Harry and staff will.
And then that is Tuesday, June 6th at 9 a.m. here in this room. And then we have the preliminary budget hearing Wednesday, July 26th at 9 a.m. And then the governing body of special library districts at 8:30 a.m. And then the fire protection special district 8:45 a.m. and the BOCC 9 a.m. The strategic planning status update is Tuesday, August 15th at 10 a.m. right here in this. No, it's at the 3600 West Sovereign Path, room 166. And tentative budget hearing September 7th, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. in this room. And then the final budget hearing is Tuesday, September 26th at 5:01 p.m. also in this room. The time is just flying by. At this time, we're going to call a recess until 5:01. Thank you. Good evening. It's 5 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting back to order, correct? 5:01. Oh, shoot. Never mind. So what would you like to talk about for a minute?
Jump the gun.
I did because you said don't be late. Thank you. Thank you. Call this meeting back to order. Okay, today we have a 501 AA-23-02 Daisy Lands for Maronda Homes LLC. Madam Attorney.
Yes, with regard to AA-23-02, do you have any ex parte communications you need to disclose them? We'll start with Commissioner Kennard.
No.
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 Thank you, Madam Chair. At the conclusion of the public hearing, you're going to be asked to consider an ordinance of Citrus County, Florida, political subdivision in the state of Florida, amending the Citrus County Land Use Atlas Map and the Pine Ridge Unit 3 Master Plan by redesignating approximately 1.1 acres from the Plan Development Residential District with a commercial designation to the Plan Development Residential District with a single-family designation, providing for severability, providing for scrivener's errors, providing for modification that may arise from consideration at public hearing, and providing for an effective date. And I believe the applicant is here for their presentation.
Thank you. Come forward, please. State your case.
Hello, my name's Daisy Landis, and I'm with Maronda Homes. This is my first county commission meeting, so I apologize if I don't really know what to do. So I'm here to ask for the reclassification of Mapleview Way from zoning to residential. We have a homeowner that found their dream site for their home, and we want to make that dream possible for them with the rezoning of this one site.
Thank you. Anything else?
If the applicant has completed their presentation, then staff is available for their presentation.
Do you want to tell us anything? Is there anything you want to point out to us? Help your side?
Only that the way the current master plan is outlined, I mean, it's decades old. The commercial has not developed in that area whatsoever. These lots have been vacant for several years. So we're just looking at you all to take a look at this plan, maybe, you know, if it's warranted, if you guys think it's warranted, if you all think it's warranted to rezone it residential.
Okay. Board, do you have any questions for the applicant? I do. This is commercial property right now?
Yeah.
And the homeowner, the landowner bought this knowing it was commercial, but they still wanted to build their home on?
They did not know it was commercial at the time of purchasing.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
You'll be able to, if anybody from the audience says anything, you'll be able to come back and address their questions. Hello.
Good evening. Jen Perkins, Planner for Land Development Division. This application is a request to amend the Land Development Code Atlas Map and the Pine Ridge Unit 3 Master Plan to redesignate one lot from commercial to single family. This is an aerial view of the subject property. It totals approximately 1.1 acres and takes access from North Mapleview Way. This is a slide of the subject lot that is highlighted in blue in the middle right of the slide. It is surrounded by commercial lots immediately adjacent to it and across West Pine Ridge Boulevard. The slide also shows the multitude of purple single-family parcels in the area. This is the original Pine Ridge Unit 3 Master Plan. The subject parcel is designated with a blue asterisk, and again, those commercial properties are in red. In the middle left of the slide is a red area that shows the properties that were originally designated commercial on the master plan. The inset shows this area enlarged, where the yellow parcels are now designated as office. The application would further reduce the number of commercial lots in Pine Ridge Unit 3. Also, a Planning and Development Commission member noted that the lot immediately adjacent to this subject property would have an increased landscape buffer. The PDC recommended denial of this application.
Thank you. Board? Any questions? Okay, I just think that this is a Maronda Homes piece of property, not a homeowner necessarily. Can she address that, or do I ask?
Whoever you would like to ask, ma'am.
Please, Daisy.
So the lot is currently owned by Maronda Homes, correct, not by an individual.
Okay.
But we have the lot under contract for a home. Does that make sense?
Okay, but Maronda knew it was commercial property.
Not initially, but they are aware, obviously, now.
Okay. Okay, because you said that the homeowner found this piece of property and they wanted to build their dream home.
Oh, sorry, I misspoke. We found the lot.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
If I may?
Yes.
There is public input in your packet regarding this application. And I can tell you what page.
That's the letter from the homeowners association?
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay.
It's page 476.
Yes,
The abutters.
I did read that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, board, what is your pleasure?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I understand that somebody found this as the perfect parcel, but considering the limited amount of general commercial that we have in this county, and we've put significant amounts of improvements and have designated these areas for general commercial, I would have to recommend denial of this application.
And that's your motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a motion on the floor for denial of this application by Commissioner Bays, second by Commissioner Finegan. Is there any, we've already done the public, have we opened it to the public?
No, there is no public.
So
You can maybe, for the record, just say that there is no one in the
there
audience.
is no one in the audience. So I will close the public portion of that. Is there any additional board comment? I'm trying to follow the letter of the law, Missy.
Yes, ma'am.
Any board comments? No, seeing none. So all in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passes 5-0. Thank you. I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.